What's going on, guys? This is Phil Bowen here with Alpine Electronics, and in this video I'm going to be walking you through the installation of our Alpine Premium Audio Upgrade Conversion Kit for the 18 and newer Jeep Wrangler. This is a complete 9-speaker amplified sound system that upgrades your Jeep from the factory base audio system to the Alpine Premium Audio Sound System. This kit comes complete with everything you need, including 8 Alpine Premium OEM speakers, the Alpine 12-channel OEM amplifier, the 11-inch OEM Enclosure assembly, and all the vehicle-specific harnessing required to make this install a true plug-and-play. Now, there's 2 different versions of this kit. Both of them include the same speakers and components. However, one version is for the 2018 to 23 Wrangler JL. The other is for the 24 to newer models. Now, the biggest difference between the 2 kits is some of the connectors are a little bit different on the harnesses, and the installation process is a little bit different as well. In this video, we're going to be working on this 2026 Wrangler JL. But if you're installing this kit in an 18 to 23 Wrangler, you could still use this video as a general guide, but you'll want to refer to the supplied installation manual for the fully detailed installation instructions. Now, before we begin the installation of this system, it is very important to note that for either one of these systems to work properly with your OEM head unit, your Jeep will require a vehicle configuration update to enable the OEM amplifier. This simple procedure can be done at your local Jeep service center. So now let's go ahead and grab our tools and get started. Anytime you're working on a vehicle's electronic system and plugging and unplugging electronic components, it's always a good idea to disconnect the battery. The Wrangler has 2 batteries in it. There's one located beneath the fuse box, and then there's one up top. So to disconnect the battery, the first thing we want to do is disconnect the small battery from the large battery up top. Using a 13mm socket, we remove the large nut on the top of the battery. Okay, now that we have the battery disconnected, now we can begin disassembling the interior components. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the 4 screws holding the top tray on and remove the top tray. Then we're going to remove the dash piece, followed by the HVAC control panel, then the window switch, and then we'll be able to remove the radio. Using a pick tool, we'll remove the rubber tray pad to access the 4 screws that are located below them. Now we'll remove the 2 7mm that are holding the dash trim on and remove it. And now, using our panel removal tool, we'll go ahead and release the clips on the dash trim and remove it. Okay, now with the dash trim removed, now we can go ahead and remove the glove compartment, and then we can remove the air condition control panel. To remove the glove compartment, pull up on the dampener to release, then push up on the lock and drop the glove box down. On the back side of the grab handle, there's a screw cover. With your panel removal tool, release the clips on the screw cover to expose the 3 screws on the back side of the handle. With our 7mm socket, we'll remove the 3 screws on the back of the grab handle. Next, we're going to remove the side panel, then we can remove the screws, and then we can remove this panel. And now with my 7mm sockets, I'm going to remove the 4 screws that are holding this panel on, and then we can finally remove it. Using our panel removal tool, we can pry off this side, release the clips, and remove the panel. Okay, so next we'll go ahead and remove the 5 screws that are holding the display in, and then we can remove it. Now we can unplug the radio display. Next, we'll remove the 4 screws that are holding in the radio brain, and then we'll unplug it. Next, we'll release connectors on the back of the radio and remove it. All right, so now that we have the radio removed, next we can remove the air conditioned vents and then the window switch panel, and then we can move over to the driver's side. With our 7mm socket, we'll go ahead and remove the 4 screws that are holding in the air conditioned vent and the 1 screw that's holding in the window switch panel. Now we can go ahead and remove our air conditioned vent. Next, we can remove our window switch panel. Now we can go ahead and unplug all the connectors. Okay, so now we moved over to the passenger side. We need to remove the 3 screws on the side of the dash panel and the 2 screws on the bottom. Okay, so now we can remove the bottom 2 screws. Okay, so now we can go ahead and remove the 2 10mm and the 7mm screw that's holding on the grab bar. There's 1 more 7mm screw, and then we can remove this entire panel. Okay, so now that we have this panel off and we have access to this speaker, we're gonna go ahead and pull the pod and replace the speaker on the bench. One thing to note here, on 18 to 23 model year, you won't be able to remove this panel completely. So the only way to get that speaker pod out is to pull the panel away, remove the screws, and drop the pod completely. For the purpose of this video, we're gonna go ahead and remove this pod in order to replace the speaker in it. But as you can see, you can replace this speaker right here. All right, now we can go ahead and remove the 3 screws that are holding the pod in, and we can remove the pod and disconnect the connector. All right, so now we have the speaker pod out. We're gonna set this aside for later, and we're gonna go ahead and remove our dash speaker. All right, now with our panel removal tool, we'll go ahead and remove the cover and the 2 7mm screws holding in the speaker. Okay, so now that we have the passenger side completely disassembled, we're gonna go ahead and remove the driver's side dash speaker, and then we can move on down to the driver's dash components. All right, now with our panel removal tool, we'll go ahead and release the clips on the cover, and we can remove it. Now we'll go ahead and remove the two 7mm screws and remove the speaker. All right, so now that we have the driver's side speaker out, we're gonna go ahead and remove the side panel. We're gonna remove the screws that hold the panels on. We're going to remove the kick panel, and then we can remove the bolster panel below the steering column. Okay, now we can go ahead and remove the 9 screws behind the panel, and then we can take the panels off. All right, next, using our panel removal tool, we're going to remove the knee bolster panel. All right, so next we could remove the 2 screws that are holding the steering column shroud and the 1 screw down below that's holding the dash panel on. Now we can remove the steering column shroud to access the 2 screws that are located behind it. And now we can remove this side panel. Okay, now we have the headlight switch removed. There's 1 more screw left on behind this panel here. Remove that screw and we can remove this panel. Okay, so now that we have that panel off, we have access to the speaker pod. We're going to go ahead and remove the speaker pod. In order to do this, there's 3 screws that hold the pod in, and there's a couple connectors that we need to remove off the back side of the pod. We need to unbolt this bracket across the bottom so we can drop the bracket down, and then we'll remove the pod, and then we can replace the speaker. Okay, now we have all the screws out, we have the bracket loose. Next, we're gonna reach up under the back side of the pod and we're gonna unplug the 2 connectors on the safety security gateway module. We're gonna unplug the pod and then we'll be able to drop it out the bottom. So now we have the front of the vehicle disassembled. We're gonna go ahead and move around to the passenger side, remove the seat, and then we can start removing the panels on that side and get to the sound bar. All right, so now we've moved over to the passenger side. We're gonna take our ratchet, we're gonna remove the 4 bolts that hold the passenger seat in. We'll unplug the connectors on the bottom and we'll remove the seat completely. All right, now that we have the seat unbolted, we'll flip it back and disconnect the connectors. Okay, so now that we've got the passenger seat out, we're going to take our panel removal tool and we're going to start prying the clips loose on our B-pillar / sill plate here, and we're going to remove it. Okay, so now that we have the lower section of the B-pillar removed and the sill plate removed, we're gonna go ahead and remove the two 10mm bolts behind the grab handle here so that we can release the upper section of the B-pillar in order to run our sound bar harness that we'll be running later on in the video. Okay, so now with our upper B-pillar section disconnected here, we're gonna remove the 5 Torx bits across the front of the soundbar panel so we can drop the soundbar panel down to access the bolts that hold the soundbar up so we can remove the soundbar. Okay, so now with the soundbar panel cover removed, we can go ahead and take out the 6 Torx bolts that are holding the soundbar up, unplug the soundbar, and then we can remove it. All right, so now with our soundbar removed, we can move around to the back of the vehicle. We can remove the last couple panels and then we can start installing some components. All right, so the last few steps of disassembly is we're gonna need to remove some of the cargo area components in order to install our subwoofer enclosure that goes on this side. So we'll be removing the cover here. We've got to remove these hangers. There's some screws up underneath that we have to take out that we'll cover along the way, but we're gonna go ahead and get started on that now. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we're going to remove the this panel back here. We need to remove this cover around the seat belt, and then we'll be able to separate this cover and pull the panel out. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and remove this panel on the back side of the roll bar here, and then we can remove this piece of carpet, and then disassembly is complete. All right, now that we have this Jeep completely disassembled, we're ready to start installing our components. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start running our harness. Our harness is gonna begin in this location down here where the amplifier is going to mount. We'll have a power wire that runs out through the firewall to the battery. Then we have a branch that comes up to where the radio would mount. Then it continues over to the passenger side for the passenger speaker. There's one that comes to the driver's side for the driver's side speaker, and then the harness will continue up the B-pillar to the sound bar, and then finally it'll route to the back where our subwoofer enclosure will be. So now we'll begin running our harness by running our power wire through the firewall. Now is a good time to do it since the amplifier and the speaker pod and everything is out of our way. What we'll do is we'll locate an unused accessory grommet on the back side of the firewall. We'll pop the grommet out, pop a hole through it, and then we will remove our fuse holder from our power wire, and then we can run our power and ground wire out through the firewall, reinstall the grommet, and then we can move on to the next step. Okay, so now with the power and ground wire run through the firewall, now we're going to take our pick tool, release the clips across the plastic channel going across the firewall here, and route our harness across the engine bay over to the passenger side, and then we can connect it to the battery a little bit later on in the install. Okay, so now that we have the power and ground wire run out to the battery location, we're going to go ahead and tuck this aside and we will connect this at the end of the installation. Okay, so now with our power wire and our ground wire routed out to the battery, next what we can do is we can install our amplifier. Now the beauty of this system is it includes the Alpine factory premium amplifier, so the amplifier actually mounts in the OEM location. So we're going to go ahead and get this mounted now, and then we can get our connections made, and then we can continue routing our harness up to the radio and over to the passenger side. Now getting the amplifier installed can be a little tricky once you get up in there, but the orientation of the amplifier will sit this direction with this facing outward and the connectors on the bottom, and then it will line up with the factory bolt locations and then use the 3 supplied bolts with the kit and mount the amplifier with them. So now with our amplifier mounted, we could go ahead and plug in our harness. Okay, so now that we have our amplifier mounted and it's connected and we have it secured, we're gonna go ahead and divide up our wire harness and start running our wire leads. We're gonna have essentially 4 separate harness runs. We have one radio T harness that goes up to the radio area. We have the soundbar harness that runs over the passenger side and up the B pillar. And then we have our subwoofer connector that runs all the way to the rear of the vehicle. And then we also have a CAN bus connector that connects behind the glove box. We're going to begin by routing our radio T harness up behind the dash and into the radio cavity area. And then we can run our speaker leads to the passenger side where we'll connect our speaker pod on the passenger side. Okay, so now we have our radio T harness routed up to the proper location. Next thing we can do is we can take the green amp to vehicle plug and plug that into our radio connector. And now we can route our passenger side speaker connector down through the dash and outside behind the glove compartment. Okay, and since we have not installed our speaker pod yet, we can leave this connector hanging and we will finish running this and connect it as we install the pod. Okay, so now with that done, we can take our 3 remaining connectors and we can route them over to the passenger side. These route a little bit differently than the T-harness connector because they need to route down lower in the dash in order to be long enough to reach the soundbar and back to the subwoofer enclosure. Okay, so now if you've run your harness correctly, you should have something that kind of looks like this. You should have 4 leads coming out this way. One of them is going to be your right side speaker pod. Then you have a CAN bus connector. We have our connector, our harness that runs up to the sound bar, and then we have our subwoofer connector that runs to the back. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our right speaker connector and our CAN bus connector and route them along the bottom of the glove compartment here. We're gonna wrap up whatever slack is remaining, and then we're gonna secure it using a zip tie with the OEM connector. We won't be reusing this OEM connector since we've run our new connector, so this connector needs to be secured and out of our way so we don't mistake it for the new connector. Okay, so now we have our excess wire secured and our OEM connector zip tied out of our way. We're gonna take our CAN bus connector here and connect it to any one of the open slots on the white bus bar located behind the glove box here and secure our wire. Okay, so with our two remaining leads, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the screw on the side of the console here so that we can tuck our harness back behind the panel, pull it down along the side of the console here, and then we will be removing the carpet, running across the passenger side, seat side, and then on to the back. Okay, so now we have our subwoofer cable and our soundbar cable run over to the passenger side. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna run our soundbar cable up through the B pillar, through the top, and we're gonna connect it here at our OEM soundbar connector. Now this particular Jeep has side curtain airbags, so what we had to do was we had to remove the Torx bits that hold the front section of the airbag up and remove the grab handle A-pillar in order to allow us to drop it down so we can feed the harness through there. If your Jeep does not have side airbags, you can simply run the harness up through the paneling and then over and connect it here at the connector. And now that we have our connector pulled through, we can make our connection here. And then next we will secure our wire down the B pillar using zip ties. And then we can move on to routing the subwoofer enclosure cable. Okay, now with our soundbar harness run up to the soundbar and connected, and our last remaining harness is our subwoofer enclosure harness. I'm gonna go ahead and open up this channel, plastic channel here on the sill plate to run the harness through, and then I'll route it up back and we'll secure it. And we will install the subwoofer enclosure a little bit later on. Okay, so now that our harness is completely installed, now we can go ahead and button up some of our B-pillar panels here, our sill plate, and then we can move on to swapping out our speakers, and then we can get them installed. All right, so now we've got our speaker pods that we removed earlier in the video. We're going to be removing the OEM speakers that are in them and replacing them with the Alpine factory premium woofers using a Phillips screwdriver. We're going to go ahead and remove the 3 screws that are holding the speaker in, unplug the speaker, plug in the new speaker, and remount it. One of the main differences between these speakers, the ones that are going in and the ones that are coming out, is the new ones have a larger motor structure, neodymium magnet, and a wider frequency response range. And one thing to note, one of the tabs on the speaker is larger than the other 2, so just make sure to orient the speaker correctly and it'll fit back right into the factory location, and just put the OEM screws back in. All right, now our first speaker is installed. We'll go ahead and replace the other one, and then we can get the pods reinstalled into the car. Okay, now with that speaker replaced, now we can go ahead and start reinstalling the pods. Okay, so at this point, we're ready to install our driver's side pod. One thing to note on the driver's side pod here is that we have run a new speaker lead for this pod. So the original speaker lead that was plugged into the pod, we will not be reusing. So what I'll do is I'll take this excess wire here, kind of wrap it up, and then I'll secure it up here using a zip tie and kind of tie off the original connector as well. Okay, now with the original connector zip tied up out of the way and the excess wire tied up, we can plug in our connector here and remount the pod. All right, next we're going to go ahead and we'll put our bolts back in and resecure this lower bracket, and then we can put the panels back on. Okay, now we'll plug in our headlight switch and reinstall the headlight switch panel. Okay, so now with our driver's side panels all put back on, we can go ahead and replace our dash speaker, and then we can move over to the passenger side. To install our dash speaker, we'll take our OEM connector, connect it to our speaker, and then remount it using the factory screws. Okay, now we'll reinstall the cover and then we can move on. Okay, now that we have our driver's side buttoned up, now we can continue on to the passenger side speaker pod. We're going to take our connector that we ran earlier and we're going to connect it here on our speaker pod. Remember that we're not reusing the OEM connector. We're going to plug in our connector that's labeled for our right side dash speaker. All right, now with the speaker mounted, we can grab the panels and start installing them. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and reinstall the glove compartment, and then we can do the dash speaker, and then we'll move on to the center section, which will include this grab bar and all of the paneling on this side. Now we'll take our passenger side speaker, connect the connector, and we'll mount it using the factory screws. And now we'll put the cover on. Okay, so next we can go ahead and reinstall our factory radio brain unit. One thing to mention, these connectors on the back are color coded and you can't really put them in wrong because they won't fit. So just match the colors with the connectors, reconnect all the connectors on the back, and then remount this unit, and then we can move on to the rest. All right, so now we have our radio brain reinstalled. We have a few more panels that we need to install. We're gonna go ahead and grab those. We're gonna put in our window switch panel, our vents, and then we'll move on to the display, and the grab handle, and then the top panels. Okay, I'm gonna start with our vent assembly, and then I'm gonna install our window switch panel. And next we can reinstall our display. Now we'll put our grab handle back on the passenger side. Okay, next we can plug in our engine start stop switch, we can plug in our HVAC controls, and we can reinstall this panel. Okay, so next we can reinstall our upper dash trim piece, and then we can put the storage tray back in, and we will be all finished with the front. We can move on to the sound bar. All right, so in the next step of the installation, what we're gonna do is we're gonna replace the speakers in the soundbar that we removed earlier. We're gonna be removing the grills, removing the speakers, then we'll remove the harness that's inside the original soundbar, and we'll replace it with the provided harness, install the new speakers, and then we can reinstall the soundbar in the Jeep. Okay, now we can go ahead and remove our factory speakers. And now we'll do the same thing on this side. Okay, so now with our speakers removed from our soundbar, we need to remove the original speaker harness and replace it with the provided speaker harness with our system. To remove the harness, we'll begin by releasing the grommets and pushing the connectors into the soundbar cavity. Now we can do the same thing on the other side. Next, we will twist the grommet on the bottom to release it. And now we can pull our harness out. Okay, and now with the harness removed, we can set this aside and we can install our new one. Okay, so now we're ready to begin feeding our new harness into our soundbar. So one important thing to note on the new harness, you'll notice that one of the leads is slightly longer than the other one. The longer side is intended to run to the side that's furthest from the grommet. So in this case, our grommet's sitting here. The longer side will run to my left, and the shorter side will run to my right. We'll begin by taking our longer side and feeding it through first. Okay, so now with our wires pulled through here, now we can flip it over and we can feed the other end of our harness to the other side. Okay, so now that we have our harness pulled through to their proper locations, we're gonna take our light connectors and our full range connectors, run them into their locations, and we'll seat the grommets, and then we'll get the speakers put back in. Okay, now we'll rotate it around and get the twist grommet reinstalled. And now we can slide our connector onto its holder. And now we can install some speakers. Okay, first we will install our 4.5-inch woofer. Now our 3.5-inch full range. Okay, and now we can do the other side. Okay, so now that we have our speakers installed and our new harness run, we can install our foam pieces, and then we can put the grills back on and we can get this reinstalled. Next, we're going to install our foam squares into the full range cavity here. Because these speakers are capable of a much lower frequency response range, these foam blocks are important to seal this chamber to allow for the perfect sound quality. Okay, and now we can reinstall our grill covers. Okay, and now with the grills installed, now we can put our foam strip on. Okay, so now we've got our sound bar flipped over. We're going to install our last piece of foam, and it's going to go located right across the front of the sound bar here. And now we're ready to reinstall it in the Jeep. Okay, now we will go ahead and connect our soundbar connector. Now we can put the panel back on and move on to our subwoofer. Okay, so now with our soundbar reinstalled, now we can put the seat back in, and then we can move on to our subwoofer enclosure. All right, now with our seat back in, we can install our subwoofer enclosure. Okay, so now we have reached our final stage of the installation, and that is our subwoofer enclosure assembly. Now, the first thing that we need to do before we can install our subwoofer assembly is we need to trim back the OEM carpet. So what I've done here is I have temporarily mocked up our subwoofer enclosure with our carpet panel. I'll make a couple of reference marks on the carpet, then I'll remove the carpet, cut it on the bench, and then we can finish the assembly. So now, because this Jeep did not come with OEM Premium Sound, this piece of carpet is actually different than the one that does come with Premium Sound. So if you prefer not to cut this piece of carpet, you can purchase this piece of carpet for the Premium Sound System from Jeep, and we'll put a link below so you can do that. All right, now we'll take the carpet over to the bench, we'll get it trimmed up, and then we'll go ahead and reinstall it. Okay, so now we have our carpet trim. Now we're going to install the carpet, and then we can get our enclosure installed. All right, so now that we have our carpet installed, the next thing we need to do is install our supplied roll bar panel. Now you will notice that there is a difference between the one supplied with this system and the one that came out of the vehicle, so be sure to install the one that is included with the system. Now we can plug in our sub and mount our enclosure. All right, and with our enclosure plugged in, now we can secure it into the factory location. And since this enclosure is a factory option as well, it fits into all of the factory mounting locations. Okay, so now we can reassemble the cargo area, and then we can install our fuse bracket and reconnect the battery. Okay, now we can reconnect the battery. Okay, so before we can reconnect battery, we need to go ahead and install our fuse holder with our fuse bracket. Now we've gone ahead and already mounted the fuse holder to the bracket, so the next thing we need to do is mount our bracket. The first thing you're going to do to mount the bracket is remove the 10mm bolt that's located beside the battery in the front of the bracket. And then in the rear of the bracket, you will use the provided screw that will fit into the threaded hole and secure the bracket in place. Okay, with our fuse holder bracket mounted, we can now feed our power wire into our fuse holder. Okay, now we can hook up our positive battery lead. And now we can connect the negative side. And lastly, we can install our fuse holder cover, and the installation is complete. Okay, so now with the full system installed, in order to get the system to function, you'll need to take it to your Jeep dealership, have them complete the consist configuration update, and you'll be ready to go. So if you're looking to pick up one of these systems for your Jeep, you can pick it up through your local Jeep dealership or online through the Mopar affiliate accessory website. We'll drop the links in the description below. Thanks for watching our video. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the comment section below, and we'll catch you on the next one.